it's not going to be good.
Well, they were tough. You had to be mean, or you just did something.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Public Works Committee of the City of Rapid City on Tuesday, May 29th at 12:30 p.m. First order of business is roll call and determination of a quorum.
Drew?
Here.
Woodruff?
Here.
Roberts? Here. Nordstrom? Here. Ballman?
Thank you. Next up is the adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Moved by Roberts, second by Modrick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, and the agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue, not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the aldermen present. And we do have a request form from Chelsea Van Wyck. Chelsea, would you like to come up?
Good afternoon. Thanks for giving me the floor this afternoon. My name is Chelsea Van Wyck and I live on East Foreman. The Mead Hawthorne drainage ditch runs on two sides of my property. With recent rains, especially the storm on May 18th, as well as multiple neighbors experienced substantial flooding to our property and homes, causing some of us thousands of dollars in repair. For some of us, this isn't the first time these repairs are being made due to the lack of attention the city has given this problem. This isn't the first time that we've talked to the city about fixing the drainage issue in this area. I addressed the council on May 21st, but prior to that, some neighbors and I sat down with city engineers and public works in July of 2016. At the July 2016 meeting, the city admitted there was an issue, but informed us there was no budget to fix the problem. Before the July 2016 meeting, Richard Town had been in contact with the city regards to the issue back to 2011, maybe further. Before that, Spearlick Consulting and FMG Inc. both did engineering surveys in the area, one in 2014 and another in 1993, and advised the city that there were major issues that needed attention. And even before that, shortly after my neighbor Joanne Wilkins purchased her home in the mid-70s, she brought photos down to the city to advise of the flooding issue. This is something the city has been aware of, to my knowledge, since the mid-70s, maybe earlier, yet no funds have been allocated to fix the problem. It's time the city sits down to find the funds to make this project happen. Not only is this a flooding issue for our properties, but it's also a safety issue on many levels. Neighborhood children play in the ditch, and as quick as that ditch fills up with water and debris, and as fast as the water rushes, if a small child were in there and couldn't get out, the city would have a child's death on their hands. Not only is that an issue, another neighbor, Amanda Lopez, has been in contact with the city in regards to the drainage and debris issues. When syringes are being washed onto her property where she raises two children, as well as a dead 40-pound snapping turtle, there's a huge problem. Decaying animals and used syringes are a huge safety issue, especially when the city has asked that she do her part and help clean up the debris. Not only do the funds need to be allocated to complete the Mead Hawthorne drainage basin work that both Spearlick and FMG advised, they also need to find the resources to clean the debris from the drainage ditch. The debris is also a contributing factor to the flooding, as people use this ditch as a giant trash can. When the water rushes through, debris gets caught up on fences and grates that are within the ditch, causing water to back up and flood properties. The city charges the stormwater assessment tax. It was my understanding that the tax was supposed to be used to complete the Mead Hawthorne drainage project. Just wondering when we can see those funds being allocated back to its main purpose. After 40 years of the knowledge of this situation, it's time for the city to start allocating funds. Dale Tech mentioned that there are more important areas of town that need attention when it comes to infrastructure. Those of us in the Mead Hawthorne drainage basin area do our due diligence and pay our taxes just like the people in more important areas of town. And it's time that this issue is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes general public comment. We're on to consent items 1 through 19. Public comment is now open, and we have one request form on item 16. So, Andy Ainsley, could you please come forward?
Good afternoon. I'm Andy Ainsley, president of Scenic Rapid City.
Could you please state your address, please?
3705 Park Ridge Drive, Rapid City.
Okay,
Thank you. This has to do with item 16, and that is what you're considering now as far as advertising on benches. And I'm here to oppose that, or recommend that you consider opposing that for a couple different reasons. One thing, aesthetics. Do we need more advertising? And Let me back up a little bit. I'm also the previous chairman of the board for the Rapid City Area Chamber of Commerce. I also run a small business in this town, an insurance agency. I'm all about advertising to get your business name out there. But do we need more visual clutter? Our business in this town is tourism, by and large. Do we need more signage? I would suggest not. As an insurance agent, I'm going to throw down the concern with distracted driving, okay? Anything that, takes a driver's eye off the view in front of them where it should be creates hazard. As you may know, too, we had several initiatives a number of years ago and having all to do with billboards and signage, and it seems very clear to me that the public in this town wants less, not more signage. I understand having to pay your bills, and I understand 15 grand a year in revenue, what you're trying to do, and I appreciate your labors and the budget trying to pay the city's bills. I would suggest this isn't the way to do it. In my opinion, it's counterproductive. If we're going to sell tourism in this town, let's not generate more visual clutter, cutting a deal with an out-of-state company. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, with that, the public comment is now closed on items 1 through 19. We'll go to the members of the committee and see if they would like to pull any items off the consent calendar. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Item 16.
Thank you. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 9 and item number 18, please.
Okay. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 15, please.
Okay. So if I'm correct, we're going to remove 9, 11, 15, 16, and 18, and I will need a motion to approve.
Did you say 11?
I think I said 11. 9, 11, 15, 16, and 18. So I need a motion to,
I don't think we called 11, but perhaps
Yep,
you
she
have
did.
it. Oh, did
Yep,
she?
she did.
oh, okay.
That's valid.
All right. Can we have a motion to, yes, to approve the remainder, omitting 9, 11, 16, 15, 16, and 18? Solomon moves to approve, Nordstrom seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. And we go on to item 9. Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a temporary construction easement and permanent storm sewer easement between the City of Rapid City and Rapid City Area School District for Meadowbrook Elementary drainage improvements, and the chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to our Public Works Director, Dale Tech?
Go ahead.
Dale, reading through this, and this is an area I represent, and I think it looks like a pretty good deal, but I wonder, and I guess one big question I would have is the work we're doing here going to impact at all the homeowners on like Argyle, West Florman, that whole area, or does it redirect any drainage issues away from them?
I don't know the details of the project that they're doing. My assumption would be no. This is on, I believe, the west side of their building. Jeff, if you're out there, is that correct? Pardon? Meadowbrook project?
And you could come up here, Jeff. I wasn't sure if you guys were working together on this or not. So Jeff, really my primary question is obviously it's good for us to provide this access. Will this have any impact on the nearby neighborhoods of the Meadowbrook School area?
No, it will not. It actually, the drainage line runs off to the west of their facility and crosses mostly school district property, but it does cross a very small portion of the golf course property to dump into the drain over there. So it's a very small area that they're requesting this for.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And just real briefly, if I may, just to address the general public comment, since we're in a committee setting.
Okay,
just,
sure.
Just for your records, we've asked our Public Works Director to provide the council with the kind of the history and status update on that situation. So first of all, a lot of us have heard of this. So I just wanted you to know you were heard and listened to. I don't know what the outcome's going to be because I don't have all the data, but I think probably within the next month or so, we'll get the data, and that way we can start to make determinations on what the need is. So I just wanted you to know that you were heard, okay? Thank you. I'll yield.
Okay, Nordstrom moves to approve. Second by Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. We go on to item number 11. Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a resolution number 2018-042, a construction fee resolution for airport water transmission main loop, frontage construction fee, project number 11-1992, comma, 12-12, excuse me, trying to go too fast here, 12-2011, 12-2012, 12-2013, 12-2014, to recapture the base cost 8-inch equivalent of the 16-inch water main constructed to the airport. Gee, that's easy for me to say. Okay, the maximum collectible amount in this resolution is $4,015,483 and change. And I brought this forward because I had a question on this, and I'll direct it to Dale Tech. Dale, this seems like it's a little bit different to me because it actually says a maximum amount, collectible amount. So that means, to me, no overage charges are allowed on this project, or?
No, I guess the proper way to interpret this would be, we know what the project costs were on the project. The project is finished. We're going to set up connection fees or construction fees, if you will. We can't collect more than what we paid for. So this capping of 4.5 will be the maximum amount that the city can collect on it. So if there are other sub-developments that occur out there and they've paid their construction fee once, they don't have to do it again. So.
Okay, all right, that clears that up for me. Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. For me, first, make a motion to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign this resolution. And then hold the floor.
Okay, motion by Nordstrom, second by Roberts, all, okay, and Richie holds the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dale, Mr. Tech, would you just give us a brief overview of all these project numbers, what they stand for? I know it's not CIP project numbers, it's Water Utility Fund. Is that where these project numbers are originating?
Correct. These are not CIP project numbers. They are actually our construction project numbers. The funding did originate all from our Water Enterprise Fund, with the understanding that they would be paid back over time with these construction fees. So the projects are all complete. The dollar amounts are known. Now it's time to pass the resolution to start collecting those amounts.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer. I'll yield.
Okay. The motion is to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries. On to item 16. 15. Authorize staff to submit transit grant to the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, for 5307 formula funds for operating assistance in the amount of $1,229,125. And the chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I make a motion to authorize the staff to submit the transit grant.
Second.
Motion by Nordstrom, second by Solomon. And you retain the floor, Richie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sagan, if you please, just a couple of follow-up questions on this grant. As you know, we're starting to get more lobbying from different groups and different businesses about extending transit service or bus stops to additional areas that are not on the current system. Can you explain to us a little bit about how this grant funding would be able to or not be able to support additional bus stops?
Yes. There would be no restrictions on where the city provides their operation of services. We could be outside the city limits if we chose to. We could be in multi-counties, whatever. That's a local decision that the city council would need to make.
Very good. And the other, let's see, I was thinking I had one other question for you on the grants. Have you gotten any information yet on what we call an electric bus or an electric minivan or a 12-passenger van? Any information come about on that yet?
From who? I'm not aware of where.
Not aware. That's
No,
fair.
I'm not.
Yeah, I probably asking something that you were not aware of, so, because we've had an offer of an electric bus coming to us. So there's more information coming on that.
It's news to me.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard on that one.
That's fine.
Yeah, there's a possibility that we may be looking at some electrical vehicles for your department. Way premature on this, but I was wondering if the grants would be able to cover something like that.
You mean the vehicles are already available? I guess I'd have to get some background on this
Okay.
to make that determination. If we use federal funds to get these, we'd have to do a competitive procurement. We couldn't just take vehicles and then pay the federal share on them. We'd have to go out and do a solicitation. So we had open and fair competition.
Even if they're donated.
If 100% is donated, that's a different situation.
Okay.
But if we are required to provide some type of payment that would have federal funds involved, then we'd have to go through a competitive process.
Understand. I should have some more information to you first part of June, so.
Okay.
Thank you for the answers.
Sure.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Rich, if you could stand by, Lisa Modrick has a few questions. I recognize Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Rich.
Hi.
So on this federal grant, it does state that it's a budgeted item, so you are budgeting to receive the award on this grant?
This is a grant that we submit annually. The city, as do other cities in the United States, receive formula funds annually. And this is the FY18 federal funding, finally been released. Typically, it's released October 1 of of 17 for 18 funds, but there was obviously delays this year. So this is a grant that we've been submitting annually since 1983.
Is it a guaranteed grant since it's in the
Yes,
budget?
it is.
So we know we're going to get the funds.
Correct.
So can you just share with the public, are those funds only then for transportation routes? Or what would the 1.2 go for?
We will use those funds in this particular case to match local dollars to provide operating within the city, our present operation. That's the dial-a-ride service, the fixed route service, Rapid Ride, and also the trolley service. And this funding will put us into early 2020. The funds that we apply for, we can use the year of allocation plus you can have 3 years of carryover funds. We've had some carryover over the course of time, so that's why these will be able to be extended into 2020.
And it's a matching fund,
Yes,
dollar
it
for
is.
dollar?
It's, no, it's, no.
Is it 50-50?
There's two different ways to, we can match these funds. They allow for, of the $1.2 million, 10% of that can go towards ADA paratransit at a 10% or at 80% matching ratio, 80% federal, 20% local.
Okay.
And then also, capital maintenance can be funded at 80-20, 80 federal, 20% local, and the other is 50% of the operating deficit. You can use federal funds to match local funds.
Does that maintenance also include bus benches in the surrounding bench area?
It's just for capital like rolling stock and or like structures, say for instance our bus storage facility, bus wash, that type of thing.
Does it do the covers on bench buses? Does it do the covers?
You mean the shelters that we
Mm-hmm.
have? Yeah, we can purchase those with this grant. We can also purchase benches with this grant.
Do you see any of these funds going towards the bus bench program and its shelters as well?
We don't have them programmed at this time. That doesn't mean we can't go in and do an amendment later and amend the grant if we choose to.
And if I remember right, you had a project on the budget that has to do with putting, I think it was concrete, in order to make those budgets more secure. Will that come out of this fund or out of your
That's
budget?
an entirely different program, and those are funds that the state DOT is administrating. We applied for those through the state, received them last year, and that project is just about complete.
Okay.
I think by the middle of June, all those pads will be completed.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thanks for allowing me to have a second time to speak on this subject. Rich, I do have one other question for you. The last time we did a transit study within the MPO, you're familiar with that study?
This
that was
study was just recently completed? Yes.
And does that grant also help us out in that area? I want to make sure the public understands it's just what we're after. The grant is for just inside the city limits and not anything outside the city limits. Am I saying that
The
correctly?
city has made the determination where the service is provided. As I mentioned previously, If the city chose to work, say for instance, in the county area, they could do that. There's no restrictions on doing that. But the way it's currently structured is we provide service only within the city limits of Rapid City.
Very good. I just wanted to make sure the public understood that part of it. Thank you. Yield.
All right, the motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed, and the motion carries. Item 16, authorize staff to enter into an agreement with the Creative Outdoor Advertising for bus benches with advertising. Staff recommends the Avenue and Lexington bench styles with 3-year revenue return of $46,125. Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for staying up there.
Sure. I knew you were going to ask me to be up here. So.
You can read my mind.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that you've come forward. It looks like we do have an RFP. It is an out-of-state RFP with a statement in there that says that once they are awarded, they will then proceed with contracting a company for maintenance, which has been one of the concerns, many concerns, but that is one of them. With that, how do you see that that's going to be successful, providing the tax dollars to Florida in order to put the proliferation of bus benching advertising down our corridors and our tourism and visitors and public?
Okay. This is a company that's been in business since 1984. They're in over 240 cities in North America and United States, and they've got 10,000 benches out there. Their intent and what they do with local businesses, they will contact, say for instance, a local marketing company to work with them to do the advertising, to find prospective clients to put the advertising out there. They'll also find someone locally to do the maintenance for them, and they will contract with a local firm or whomever to do the maintenance on those, whether it would be cleaning graffiti, replacing benches that are damaged, that type of activity.
So with them out of state, then it looks like there's going to be a human factor from within your company, from within your department, in order to acknowledge if there is any abuse, graffiti, damage, cigarette butts, and all the things that happen to public
Well, that would actually
facilities.
come from two different sources. One, I mean, with our drivers being out there every day, and even with our current situation, they'll notify of us, for instance, if there is a bus that's been hit or a bus that's got graffiti on it, whatever. But also with the local firm that they would contract with, it would be their responsibility to make sure that they're out in the field continually when there are issues. So they would do a monitoring situation during the course of the contract.
So with it being third party and maybe even sometimes fourth party, who does the reporting go to? How's the chain of command then?
They would be responsible contractually to us to make sure that they maintain these in a very good condition. And if we started having issues with them, then we would contact them and say, hey, look, we've got some problems here, you need to take care of them. It'd be
So-
no different than the way we presently do things.
So do complaints go to code enforcement, or do they go to you?
Typically, they would come to me. I mean, that's the way it's kind of happened in the past. Like, a motorist might notice a bench that's been destroyed, and they'll contact maybe the city, and somebody from the city will say, well, you need to call the transit office. And so it's just kind of, it depends on the situation, depends on the individual that, notices the issues.
In their contract, does it say how much they're going to invest in? Because I know you mentioned that there's some need for new benches, and you've shown a style of bench that you're recommending. Have they also put into that RFP how much their investment will be into our community for these?
That part, they don't, they're basically what their situation is, they're providing the benches and they're providing a revenue stream to us. What their cost is on those benches, I have no idea. I'm sure because they buy in such great volume, they're probably able, obviously they're able to do this, they've been in business a long time and they're making that business model work.
And then the other thing that I see on these examples that they've sent with their specs, it does show what the citizens are worried about when they're thinking about the beautification and the safety and the drivability and the invite that it does. In one of the examples, it shows that it's next to a beautiful waterfall. It looks like maybe a centralized area in a city. And so there's a bus bench that would be quite attractive if it didn't have maybe something on it. Another example here shows a direct competitive response here with another business that is there. and, you know, you've got phone numbers and so on, so now you've got to do sideways driving in order to catch what that advertising is saying, perhaps, you know, color issues. Really, in all of these, it's the example that so many are worried about on the beautification side that the city's worked so hard towards, and the beautification committee that has responded. And these are showing the examples of it being in beautified areas as well as competing with businesses that are paying property taxes and employee benefits as well. So that is, there's a tremendous amount of concerns as to what the $15,000 bang for a buck's going to be. And we just approved a grant with some funds that we're going to have available. And that grant is important, and it can go towards some of these areas that we have a need on these, including coverage. The shelters are important. We are a winterized area. We need bus service. It'd be nice to have more shelters. And that may be where we need to see some of the grant money go. It also may reduce the need to have more proliferation of advertising in spaces that it's not needed. Another question, and I'll try to wrap this up with another council member, but are these going to be going in park-like settings like what I'm seeing on the example?
They're only going to be going in commercial areas on the major arterials. They're restricted by ordinance as to where we can place these.
Is it by a diameter of radiance, or how is that restriction?
It'd basically be based on zoning.
The
And it
current zoning.
specifically states zoning areas where we can't be in.
And is it in right-of-way? Is it
It
in
is in right-of-way,
Is it
yes.
city right-of-way or the DOT? You
Some of it's DOT, some of it's city.
have to get approval from the DOT?
When we place them, yes.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to Rich H. Sagan, please?
Please do.
Rich, you know, 3 years for 46,000 is not that much, but one question I was thinking about as I'm looking through this is, we know this company can get a good value on these benches. Do you have an approximate, I don't know, price range of what it would be for us to actually install these benches ourselves and maintain
Go out
them?
and purchase benches
Yeah,
like these.
or like all benches cost money, so this is a bench replacement program in a sense. Do we have any idea how much we pay for?
Well, what I
for
can
bench?
tell you is that the exposed aggregate benches that we have now,
Yeah,
and we purchased, the last group of those would have been in 2009. With freight and such from the company, those ran between $400 and $500 per bench.
And we're
If
talking
we're looking
about-
at replacing 100 benches, which at some point we're going to have to do, we're looking at some significant resources there.
okay. So the real value for the city is not so much on this $46,000, it's on the actual benches themselves.
Yes, correct.
I mean,
And we do realize the revenue stream coming back, and then they're totally responsible for the entire situation. And also too, they will provide, if the city has, for instance, some PSAs they want to do, they'll provide up to 10% of their benches that they place for free advertising for the city for like special events. Or if there's some nonprofit organizations that have things coming up, they allow for that as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be honest with everybody up here. I'm really on the fence on this issue. I mean, I'm all for advertising. I've mentioned that. And if I think the return is great for the city, I'd be all about this. But I'm struggling that the return is not as strong. However, the value of the benches does play a factor for me. But also, I can understand Alderwoman Modrick's and a lot of community members' concerns about too many signage, although I don't see the bus benches as that issue. I mean, we have a lot of signage from on and off premise signage and everything else. And so I don't really buy that this has to be ugly per se. This is very common in communities. However, I think the best argument to make that we are a destination community, and there's something to be said about that. And if the rate of return was better, I would probably be all in on it. But the minimal rate of return, you know, has kind of got me on the fence a little bit, I'll be honest. So I'll leave it at that. We'll see where I vote. I could change my mind between now and Monday night as well, but just I appreciate your work on this, though.
Sure.
What you're trying to do is a good thing, is that's put these more maintenance-free benches in place. And I think reading through these on the Lexington and what was the other one, the Avenue, and I saw absolutely no visible degradation over the life of the program. I mean, there's some good benches here. So I'm not sure the benches are in question. It's probably just the advertising on them. So I would love to kind of, maybe if you can even hammer out what that value is for us if we had to replace it ourselves.
Well, if I may, I don't know if you're familiar with the bench that sits out here like at 6th and Omaha Street
Right.
that we put in the beautification. Those are about $1,200 a piece.
1,200. And we got how many locations we're looking to replace?
75. And
75.
And really, in other areas, we'd have to probably add some. Well, we have benches in areas now that are in more residential, but obviously there's no advertising on them. But currently, we have 112 benches. So if we replace those with something other than this exposed aggregate, something that has to meet ADA requirements, as I said, something like that, similar, those are around $1,200.
So my quick math then is $90,000.
It's pretty pricey.
Okay, now we're talking different kinds of things. So that's really where it gets me, is not so much on the $46,000 in revenue, which is about 15, 16 a year. It's those benches themselves. And so that's, and maybe we can get a better deal than 1,200, but still, it's a lot of money. 75 benches is a lot of benches. So I think that's actually the real question for us is, what are these benches worth? Not just the advertising, but what are the benches worth? And I think that's probably the discussion point. And thank you for answering that question. I'll yield and let the rest of the council chime in.
We go to John Roberts.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion, then hold the floor. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize staff to enter into this agreement. If I can get a second.
Motion by Roberts, second by Nordstrom, and Roberts has the floor.
Thank you very much, and I'm not in the fence at all with this. There's a lot of reasons that I like this. I don't think the advertising is going to be overly offensive because it's going to be in commercial areas. It's going to be, if it was in neighborhoods, I would say that was different. If it was in our parks, I would say that's different. But in commercial areas, we have a tremendous amount of advertising to begin with. And if this is that distractive, maybe we should look at getting rid of some of these 10,000 political signs that are out there right now. I think they'd be more distractive. I think it's a good way for small businesses like my own to be able to advertise relatively inexpensively on fixed signs, because I have done billboards in the past, and that's $1,000 a month, and I'm sure this is going to be a lot cheaper. I think they look good from the pictures that we have here. I think that, if we can save the taxpayers $15,000 a year, we should save the taxpayers $15,000 a year, because if we can save them $15,000 here, where else can we save them $15,000? It's an ongoing thing. And also, if you look at the $100,000 to replace the benches, but then also you have the cost of somebody from your department must be cleaning the ones that we have existing, so there's that cost there too. So, it is a significant cost savings over 3 years. It's not just the $15,000. So, my rough math is probably close to $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And that's significant to the taxpayers of Rapid City. Every year, what's the biggest thing I hear from people? My taxes keep going up, and what am I getting for it? We've got a young lady that was in here that's had flooding issues in her neighborhood for 40 years. So I think it's pretty significant that we look at saving every cent we can for the taxpayers. Anyway, I'll get off my podium and I'll leave right now. Thank you.
We go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rich, if you could address this sole bidder issue that came up recently. This company is the sole bidder that applied for this?
Well, actually, it was an RFP, and I know a lot of different companies looked at it. It was on public purchase, and I think there were, I don't know, at one time, 25 to 30 different firms that at least saw it up in public purchase and pulled it down to look at it. I guess the question is why was there only one?
Right.
I guess I can't answer that. That's a business decision that companies make, and as I said, this company has got a big presence not only in the United States but also in North America.
I think
and they're obviously good at what they do.
I think for me that's a major factor as well. So the other part of it is just refresh everybody's memory about the signage control that your department takes control of.
Right, and they
who
even
does
state
what, where.
that's even stated in their proposal that You know, we have the say on what goes on there, the artwork that goes on there, the colors, the message that goes on there, we have control of that. They don't engage in businesses that, you know, we excluded certain types of, you know, messages that we would not allow on the benches, and they are completely on board with that, and that's something that's a company policy that they have. Also, the benches themselves, there's multiple colors, they're not just have to be black. It can be more of an earth tone color if you chose to as well. That was just a representative example in another city.
Fair enough. Thank you, Rich. One more question, or comment, actually. It has to do with my math coming up on it, and I appreciate Alderman Solomon coming up with a question about how much the benches are worth, in the neighborhood of $90,000. For me, that's a grand total of $136,000 to take a look at, and yes, it's over the 3-year period. And if we just use the 1-year period, I came up with $105,000 if they change out all the benches in 1 year, using the $90,000 plus the $15,000. So I think that's a fair investment for the citizens here, to save us on the cost for the, shall we say, instead of using the grant fund for putting in benches and shelters at the bus stops, this could go towards that instead. So using the grant funding for the bus stops instead, that's a plus for me. So thank you.
I'm going to jump in here before we go back to Lisa Modrick and Jason Solomon. I see the civic benefit for this. Advertising doesn't give me a great deal of heartburn, but the people of Ward 5 have said loudly and often to me that they do not want to see me say yes to this, and I will respect my ward constituents, and I will be voting no. So now we go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot of numbers floating around, and none of them are factual, so that makes it kind of tough when you're hearing the numbers of 60,000, 90,000, 136,000. It's all over the page. Where I want to get down to here is in the RFP. Does it state that they're going to replace the 100 benches, or no, I think you have 75 in the RFP, don't you? Does it state in there that they're going to replace all 75 within a time frame?
Yes, it does.
And when will that time frame be?
Once for instance, if they got notice to proceed with this contract, they would order them. They said they're 4 to 6 weeks to get them in their possession, and another probably 4 to 8 weeks to get them all placed.
And then with that type of investment up front, that is pre-selling of advertising? They're just going to put city benches in for us?
It's all, they're exposed to this entire thing, so all the risk is on their side.
And if it's damaged, is it an insurable
It is,
risk
and
as
they
well?
have $2 million general liability per occurrence.
So with the 75 that you're stating, they're going to replace all 75 benches with, at whatever their costs are. I think there was a number that we saw on our link that they could do it for as low as $200, not $1,000, which is really quite reasonable. I would think we could piggyback on a type of a program as well with other cities in order to lower our costs. But that 75, at some point then, they're going to have it in a program where it is updated and upgraded and changed out. And is that where the city maybe put a hiccup in our beautification benches by not planning a schedule for replacement of the 112 that we currently have?
No, I wouldn't say that that's the case. I'm just saying at some point, we will be required to replace these benches as they deteriorate. And the type of bench that we have has a shelf life to it like anything does. And now they've been out, the newest ones have been out since 2009. So exposed to the elements and, you know, people messing around with them and being run into and such. There's,
Yeah.
you know, they do have a deterioration. These particular benches that they are proposing to put in, they say they have a 20-year life the way they're designed.
Well, one of the things I noticed with what we do have and in the investment that we made only in 2009, so less than 10 years, is that they are good benches. They've lasted a while. They still look good. There are probably some that need to be replaced, but I don't believe all 112 need to be replaced. I think it needs to be on a cycle. The citizens of Rapid City don't want these. They're speaking loud and clear on this, and regardless of how many fill the room, we get to hear an awful lot of it. And it's something that was put into place by a city council years ago, and it was there for a reason. And I believe it's this city council's purpose to keep that reason going in order to benefit the public in full. So I cannot support this. The $15,000 doesn't have enough skin in the game. It doesn't make a difference, and I believe that we wouldn't have to replace 112 benches or 75 benches all at once. I think that this could be scattered over time. It could be very affordable for us to keep the program as it is with beautification. And I hope that the council will listen to the people and consider the same thing. Thank you.
Go back to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, hey, Rich, after 3 years, and if we chose not to renew the contract, we keep the benches?
No, they're their property.
So they take the benches back? Okay. Well, here's one positive on the 3 years. If you don't like it in 3 years, we don't have to do it again. I mean, there is something to be said about that, and I think the reason it's good to have this conversation is people like me who could see kind of both sides. I thought Alderman Roberts actually brought up some really good points today, and I think there's value to these benches, although, so what would happen after 3 years and they took the benches, then we would have to go purchase our own benches at that time or enter a new agreement, basically.
That's
what we're
correct.
talking about. Okay. All right, I yield.
Chair recognizes John Roberts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Looking through this bid and form contract, I think that that Alderwoman Modrick was probably confused on that, because I think the $200 they were talking about is the per unit bench price that they're going to give back to us. Correct. So at $205 a bench per year is what they're going to pay us for our portion of the advertising on the bench. But, you know, that said, speaking to the company, if the company does decide in 3 years to pull up stakes and leave, we could probably get one heck of a price from them on those benches rather than them shipping them off somewhere else, you know. So anyway, I think that, like I said, I think this is a good deal. I think it's a good deal for the taxpayers. I don't care if it's $5,000 a year or $10,000 a year, $50,000 a year. I still think any time that any money going into the general fund is good for the taxpayers. And if you don't think it is, there's probably something wrong with you. Anyway, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, the motion on the floor is to approve authorizing staff to enter into this agreement. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Well, that would be 3 yeses and 2 noes, because I'll be voting no. And so the motion does carry, and we'll go on to Monday night, of course, as you know, so we'll be revisiting this again. So thank you, Mr. Sagan,
Sounds
for your
good.
time.
Thank you.
Good discussion, yes, yes. Okay, now we move on to item number 18, approve change order to number 1 to Highmark, Inc. for bike path restoration and Rapid Creek Bank Stabilization Project, PR 14-6118, for an increase in the amount of $2,929. And I go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I move to approve, if I get a second.
Moved by Solomon, second by Roberts.
And may I direct a question to our Parks and Recreation Director, Jeff Beegler?
Knock yourself out.
Easy for me to say. All right, Mr. Beegler, I know this amount, this change order, it looks like this is covering the bike path under the bridge at Chapel Lane, is that?
That is correct, yes.
Did we not include that in the original proposal?
It was discussed, but it was not included in the original proposal. And what this change order does, it also adjusts for actual quantities used in other areas of the project as well.
Okay, so it's completely level, no issues going in underneath the bridge?
Correct, yeah. So if for those that aren't really aware of this location, there's a small parking lot on the east side of Chapel Lane where people park to fish and to use the paddle boats and that sort of area. So this pathway now will lead from that parking lot underneath the bridge to the west side where there's a lot of activity there, fishing and picnicking and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so maybe in the future, we include that sort of thing, because that's an important little corridor and very, very active. I was just curious if that was in the original one or not. I was kind of surprised it wasn't.
It was not, and it has deteriorated. It was just a gravel pathway that washed out every time there was high water, so this will fix it.
Thank you. I yield.
I just need to make a comment. Great questions on that, Jason, because I use that area a lot, and I'm really glad to see that improvement being made. So thank you very much for your time and explanation, Mr. Biegler. So the motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the motion carries. This brings us on to the end of consent calendar and on to non-consent items. Go to item 20, request to hang banners on light poles. Bill Casper, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know how much you want me to go over this. You want me to explain a little history of this project?
You can do it in 5 minutes. How's that?
I'll try. Very quickly, I started this project last year in response to a project that goes on in Emporia, Kansas. And not knowing where to go, I went to Main Street Square. I managed to get 18 banner hangers from them, and we hung 18 World War II veterans up on banners because I represent World War II veterans quite a bit. We got quite a bit of publicity on television, radio, and the project just exploded to the point where this year I went before Parks and Recreation with Scott Anderson and got a verbal agreement for 75 of their banner hangers on Main Street and St. Joe Street from East Boulevard to West Boulevard, and then through the gap to the intersection of Jackson Boulevard. I cut the order off at 75, so if we can get approval for these, we should have over 90 banners up. And I've got one, if I can get it unrolled here.
If you'd like to come out to the center and move this way a little bit, then we can catch that on the cameras.
This is what the new banners would look like.
Come into this area. Turn around.
What the new banners will look like, they're 5x2. We put the veteran's name on, their time of service. We try to get a picture of them in uniform, and then whoever sponsors them can put whatever information they want down at the bottom. This is just a prototype of the R2 sign.
That is cool.
And these are the ones up on the banner hangers where the Parks and Rec, I believe, puts their seats and greetings. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And we're looking for veterans from all branches of the service, all service lines.
Bill, I'm going to interrupt you since we've seen it. Now go back to the podium so we can hear and record what you're saying because it's important stuff.
Because I used to be your teacher, so.
He was my teacher, yes, that's right. Now I can boss him around. I know, Mr. Casper.
What I'm looking for is veterans from all branches of the service and all time. We should have 2 World War I veterans up this year, and I'm looking for more women and more Native Americans, so it's a job to get the word out, but we're giving it a try. I think I'll have veterans all the way through Desert Storm this year, if we get approval. And I think one of the reasons I'm asking, when I talked to Scott, I was asking if I could get some sort of a written agreement on the use of these banner hangers from the middle of October through Veterans Day. And then he suggested I check in with you folks, so that's, I guess, where I'm at right now. I'd like something in writing so that I know I have these every year. I'm giving these a life of 3 years. After 3 years, the sponsor has their choice of either re-enlisting or re-upping to keep the banner up, or they can have it. And all I charge for is the cost of the banner and a portion of the cost to hang it.
And what does that cost then? For
This year it was $80. The banners were $65 and change, and I'm appropriating, I think, about $15 a piece to hang them. I haven't gotten a bid yet because I'm waiting to get the approval for the banner hangers before I did anything else.
And where can they find more information on this if they want to go?
We have a website. We're a 501c3, and we have a website, all one word, veteranshonorbannerproject.com.
Well done, sir. We have some questions from the committee. Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I move to approve this request. If I get a second to retain the floor, please.
Yeah, motion to approve by Solomon, second by Modrick. Go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Casper, I want to commend you publicly for your work on behalf of the veteran community. We have a couple of veterans up here, and we really appreciate that. The word hero is thrown around quite loosely, but obviously those who have served, and you have veterans going back to World War I and even now, those who have served, though, those are real heroes. And I think you can tell a lot about a culture by how you honor the heroes who actually make a difference. And so one way that we can do this is through the work that you're doing by allowing you to hang these banners on our light poles. And those look great. They're fantastic and a great reminder to honor people that sometimes were forgotten, especially in some wars that we've had. And so to acknowledge them and to honor them and respect them, I think, is appropriate for our community, especially a community that is so rich with military and veteran history. And so thank you for your work on this. This is, I mean, you know, you're not getting a lot out of this except some personal satisfaction, and I greatly appreciate you keeping their legacies and memories alive because, you know, these veterans earned it.
It's an honor and a privilege.
Absolutely. With that, I'll yield the floor.
Okay, John Roberts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think this is just an absolute fantastic project. I was lucky enough growing up to have a lot of World War II veterans as friends and family friends. One of the things that I'd like to do is my company would like to donate a couple of these, so if you get a hold of me, I'll pay for a couple of them because I know that there's people out there that can't afford them, and maybe even more than a couple, so I'll give you my card before I leave. I think this is just an absolute fantastic project.
I appreciate that. I know we've got one on the reservation. His father was a code talker. You may have been up at the ceremony at Mount Rushmore, and I know they're financially strapped.
Then
so I have had people that have asked to sponsor and let me choose. So there are, I can always find names. I've got a long list.
And I may have one or two of my own that I like to do,
Fine.
but I will give you a card, and you know, if they're $80, I'd be happy to sponsor 5 of them this year.
Okay.
So.
Well, this year it's closed.
Oh, it is.
But so you're looking at 2019 now.
Well, we can get
and the price
ahead of
and the
next
price
year,
may
then.
go up.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I am absolutely fine with that. I will give you a card before I leave. You send me that, and I will make sure you get a donation.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask Mr. Bigler a question?
Please do.
Thank you. And while he's walking up, I just want to say, with Mr. Casper and stating that it's closed, that means there is a demand for more of these honorees, which means we need to find new and more locations, which enters into why I'd like to talk to Mr. Bigler, if I could. Thank you. Hi, Jeff. So there had been some discussion on the Mount Rushmore Road poles that were set up specifically for banners, and if Bill Casper's program could go on there. And at this point, the state will probably have to go to Pier to get that to happen, and I think we can. But in the meantime, where are other locations? So there's been quite a few people that have been talking about that with Bill. Where are other locations where mid-October through Veterans Day, these could be hung? And one of the conversations was, could Wilson Park have a walk? And then the other was, there's already a memorial walk down at the promenade. Are there options and opportunities for this program to expand so it's not closed and we can continue to create the honor of a walk for more than just the 80 so that we can go beyond this?
There are other locations that currently have banner hangers that were designed to be on the poles that are there. You mentioned the promenade. There are about 36 poles down there that have banner hanger hardware that's part of the pole. One of the things we want to be sure is that any of the poles that are up there are capable of being able to hold a banner, and that's not always the case. They're designed, if they're designed to have a banner, then they probably already have a banner bracket installed as part of the pole. So I was asking this morning some of our staff, I think there are additional poles with hangers on them on Kansas City and Quincy, I think. Those 2 streets in the downtown area. And then, as you mentioned, of course, the ones along Rushmore Road and at the promenade.
So with some of those that you've been working on for identifying, what would be the process if Bill got another rush to be able to open those up? Does he just file a permit down at Parks and Rec to open that up?
No, we're currently working with the attorney's office and with community development and the engineering office to try to set some policy and procedure for hanging banners on city poles. Currently, there is none. So while this is an extremely worthwhile project, we want to be sure that the next person that comes with something to hang on there is also appropriate and something that the community can be proud of. So in absence of that policy, we are not taking any permit applications. We actually don't have a permit application for anything other than those large banners that go across the location on West Main, or I'm sorry, on Main Street and on St. Joe. Those are the only two that we currently, two locations that we currently permit.
Okay.
If I might interject, the School of Mines is very interested in banner hangers east of East Boulevard, going out past the football field. I've been visiting with them at some length, and also the West Boulevard Association, very interested in banner hangers on their light poles going all the way from St. Patrick down to Kansas City Street. So there are some more opportunities. I can list a whole bunch if you want.
Well, I think this is great because with Mr. Bigler working on it already of identifying where locations can be and working towards the policy, and then using this veterans program in order to initiate the policy, it looks like the now is the time because the opportunity is now. And I hope we can pull this together and maybe put something before the council fairly soon so that 2019, he can continue to be bringing in those that want to make that contribution and get those up in 2019. So I'm excited about it, and thank you, Jeff, for working on that. And I hope in 2019 we're putting more up than we have this year. Thank you very much, and thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to make an executive decision here, and we're going to jump to Dale Tech.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to state that not all poles are built for the wind loading for banners, so I want you to be cautious about that in the future. I think the proposal in front of you today is good. There are existing poles with existing banner capabilities, but the community will have to use caution if you're proposing things outside of that, because we have a number of poles a year that just blow down too. And by putting a banner on it increases the wind loading. It's certainly a safety issue. So other corridors that don't have banner poles on them, it's going to be very difficult to just put banners on them and be in a safe situation.
Thank you, Dale. Chair recognizes Rich Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who this question goes to, but Jeff, since you're up there to begin with.
He didn't sit down fast enough.
I'll start with you. Do you need direction from the council to develop a policy, or how does that process work? Are you drafting something, or?
We're already working on something. We're with some of the other departments to try to come up with a policy and some regulation.
And just to clarify, just make sure the folks understand, on the DOT roads, the right-of-way, and et cetera, am I understanding correctly, they do not allow pictures on the right-of-way for the state highways?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't
Okay.
have an answer for you there.
Okay, I'm hoping, is anybody else, staff, aware on that? Don't know either, okay, and then the, okay. Okay, and I see Mr. Casper running to the microphone. Yes.
Driving through Deadwood the other day, that's Highway 85.
Yes.
And it was interesting, they have banner hangers up there, and they're historical pictures, but they're still pictures of Wild Bill Hickok and people like that, and that's on Highway 85. In addressing Dale's, we've already discussed with my print shop the opportunity of possibly putting some kind of holes in the banners for wind. To allow wind to blow through, so we're already looking at something, because I understand a 5x2 banner that can act like a sail, and you know, we don't want a pole and a banner going flying down the road someplace.
Good idea. Thank you. And then anyone from the legal department, do they have any objections or raising concerns yet on this part? I see Carla Cushman.
Could we have everyone stand at the podium, please?
And I should have you state your name and affiliation to the city.
Carla Cushman, Assistant City Attorney. I'm working with staff to address that policy side of it.
Yes.
This was our first request for expanding the banners. And the sign code says that City Council can approve these requests or adopt policies and regulations to permit this to happen at a staff level. From a legal side, there's kind of a lot of things to think about in terms of who gets to do this, what kind of messages are acceptable, will there be any requirement for insurance, those kind of things that we're kind of working through. But given Mr. Casper's timeline, and I also thought it would be helpful to get a sense from the council on what issues you might see that we should address in the policy as well. So hopefully we'll have something coming forward.
Thank you. I'm really supportive of this particular project, but I agree with you, Ms. Guzman, that some of these legal questions need to be addressed for future consideration. So hopefully this is not a roadblock or a hiccup for this current project. So I'm going to be voting in support of this, and so I just want to make sure we got our legal sides covered as well. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thank you. And if you're looking for direction from us, at least from my standpoint, I think if we're going to look at, first of all, I'm all about this, but if we're going to look at long-term policy, looking at safety, as Mr. Tech brought forth, and probably things that are appropriate. And because the thing is, there are a lot of worthy causes out there, and they may all kind of want to vie for a piece of that pie if you determine that these kind of signs can go on poles. I can imagine a year-round deal. Mr. Casper, were you trying to add something in here?
This is an interesting statement. When I went before the Main Street Square people, and at one point I asked who had control of the banner hangers in town, and Dan Seffner looked at Carly, and they said, we don't know.
Yeah.
And it seems like the public library seems to determine what goes up there. Dahl determines what goes up somewhere else, and so on. So I guess there really is no.
And that might very well be the
policy.
case. There might be different entities, and I think it's worthy for us, long-term planning, just to look at who kind of manages that, make sure that it's appropriate, make sure that it's safe, that we're not hurting our poles or anything like that. It's too bad we can't just put these on our bus benches. We probably would have had consensus up here today. But for the visual stuff, put it up there permanently would probably be a lot easier. But anyways, I think this is a worthy investment for us to check out, but I think in terms of what staff direction is, I think it's wise for us to look at what that policy is, because otherwise you may have a lot of people vying for October through November and taken away from Mr. Casper, and it may be ultimately each one has to come through the council to make sure it's in good taste, and there might be competing interests and all that. There's a lot of stuff that comes forth. So I expect this will get a lot of play, but that might also create new interest, and that's probably the one thing I think we have to be mindful of, and that's why it's probably good for us to look at how we approach this. Thank you.
All right, good discussion once again. The motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. The last item is the Sustainability Committee Annual Update. They have requested to be moved to Monday night for the full council, so we will not be having a presentation by the Sustainability Committee unless I'm wrong, unless there's someone here that's going to do that. Okay, so just had to check in on that, so they'll be here on Monday. Motion to adjourn?
We need a motion
Okay, all right, I need a motion to,
move to send to council.
use your microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Make a motion to send this report to, or update to, the full council without recommendation.
Motion by Ritchie, our Councilman Nordstrom, and second by Modrick, to move this to Monday night without recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, and it carries. Jason Solomon moves to adjourn, second by Nordstrom. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
You did good. I didn't see you fall off your chair dizzy at all.
Yeah.